thank you so much for being my first podcast guest on my YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel something like 6 weeks ago, and it's just taking off. But it's still at very early stages. So thank you so much for accepting my invitation to come and talk to me. I know you're busy. You're campaigning for as a candidate for Greater Manchester. When is the election, Nick, in Manchester? Is it the same as London?
Yeah, so the Manchester Mayor election is the 2nd of May.
Right, 2nd of May. So we haven't got long to go. And it could be a decisive moment for Manchester and London. In fact, I think this is a very pivotal year in a lot of ways. We've got probably the general elections in England, and you've got the US elections. So this is going to be a very decisive year. Just to let the audience how I got to know you, I started following you on social media after you were sacked from your job, and was it the Free Speech Union that took up your case?
Yeah, they did. They were fantastic.
And you managed to get your job back, and that's how I started getting to know about you. And then I followed you on social media, and the things that you were saying were resonating with me. I thought this is the sort of thing that I want to say. And then I met you last year in person, and we got on very well. And I can honestly say that, I think I'm a good judge of character. I've met a lot of politicians in there, and you're probably the most genuine person. Although you wouldn't even call yourself a politician, would you?
No, I'm not a politician.
You're a genuine person. You really want to help Manchester. You really want to make a change in Manchester. And I really hope that you do become a mayor. So if this podcast, even with my small number of subscribers, can help you, then it's a great honour for me.
No, absolutely. And the only way I've got a chance of winning against the machine, the Labour machine, that's Andy Burnham, is for grassroots people to say, I like that Nick Buckley, and I want to tell my family and friends about him. That's the only chance I've got of winning.
This is very much a grassroots campaign, isn't it? I mean, we've been hearing about like the Muslim votes recently after Galloway won the Rochdale election, and it's good to know. It's good to hear about grassroots instead of like a divisive term, like a Muslim vote or a non-Muslim vote or whatever. The British people, the British people vote, the patriotic vote, the common sense vote. So actually, it might be a good idea to start with. I saw it's interesting. You tweeted about what was mentioned in the opening statement of the budget today, when the Chancellor of Exchequer straight away he started going on about Gaza, and then saying something about building a monument for Muslim people who fell during serving Britain.
Yeah.
Now, without actually seeing your tweet, I mean, as soon as I saw that, I thought, this is just so stupid. I mean, you have a monument for everyone. It doesn't matter whether they have blue eyes or whether they're like curly hair or whether they're Jewish or Baha'i or Muslim or something. Otherwise, we're going to have a monument for every group of person that has been killed as part of the service. And it was so obvious that he was trying to appease the Muslims. He starts with the statement on Gaza, and then he moves on about building a monument for Muslims. And I'm thinking to myself, is this stupid person, this is actually what I tweeted on my Twitter account, this stupid person think that by saying something like that, he's actually appeasing the Muslims? I mean, if the radical Muslims, the extremists, they couldn't care less about a monument for Muslims that fell fighting for Britain. They will actually regard them as traitors, or say that they were forced to do the colonial thing and that. So it's not going to make any difference to them at all. And this is not how you tackle extremism at all, is it? If anything, you've shown that you're trying to give them a concession. You're trying to show that you're appeasing them, and it's got nothing to do with the budget. I've never experienced anything like that in budget statements. Have you? I mean, do you think that was unusual? And I noticed that you posted something similar on your Twitter account as well. What was your thoughts when you started talking about this monument?
I think I can honestly say now I've reached the end with the Tories. I now despise them now. I've held them in contempt now for a decade. But today was a day I can put in my diary. Today's a day where I decided I now despise the Tories. During their budget, for them to announce £1 million for a Muslim war memorial to celebrate the Muslims who gave their life for the empire, for Britain, for England, is the end. Not because we shouldn't celebrate those Muslim soldiers who are brave individuals, who are patriots, who are better than me and you, probably. Most of those Muslims are better than me and you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the problem. The problem is splitting people into groups. We have monuments for our war dead, and those monuments represent everybody of every faith, every religion, every skin colour, and every nation who laid down their lives for Great Britain, for the Empire, and we celebrate every single one of those dead soldiers. What we need to stop doing is this separating. This is the monument for Black Caribbeans. This is the monument for Muslims. This is the monument for blue-eyed people. This is the monument for left-handed people. It's getting crazy. It's splitting us into groups.
Yeah.
And the more we split into groups,
for the Mormons, or I don't know, whatever. Like, it's for the atheists. You're going to have a monument for the atheists. This is just. It was so obvious that they were trying to appease, and it's just the wrong way to do it, isn't it? It's.
And you're right, it doesn't appease anybody.
It doesn't appease anyone.
Because the radical Muslims see those Muslim soldiers who fought for the British Empire as traitors. They would have killed those Muslim soldiers themselves under some sort of jihad because they shouldn't have been fighting for Christian countries anyway. So they're not going to do anything with the radical Islams. And for the moderate Muslims, just like most moderate people in this country, don't care anyway. We've lost all connection to our history. We've lost all connection to patriotism. And this £1 million virtue signalling exercise is done today is not only just pathetic, it's turning British people against the government now. It's finally turned me. I despise the Tories now, absolutely despise them.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do with the budgets either, is it?
No.
I mean, I've never heard the Chancellor of Exchequer start the budget talk with something like that. It's start with Gaza, we feel the loss of lives in Gaza. I mean, obviously you can feel the loss of life in Gaza in there, but there's a context with everything. Like, you don't go to a birthday party and start your talking to others about that, because everything has its own context. And this is about the budget, and this monument has got nothing to do with the budget at all.
And why didn't the Chancellor also mention the horrendous deaths in Syria, the horrendous bombing deaths in Yemen? Why did the Chancellor also say, I'm really ashamed of all the Black Nigerian Christians being hacked to death in Nigeria? We could go around almost every country in the world and say, we're sorry for the things that are happening. And that's most of the world's at war at some point or another. It's pure virtue signalling. And I think it's slightly worse than that. This was a political mover to damage the Labour Party even more with their block Muslim vote. And at the part of the year where we're talking about finances in the country, but again, the Tories now are clinging to any hope of saving some of their seats. This is a dying man clinging to straws.
But I think where they're going wrong is, instead of actually appealing to the people that voted them in, they keep trying to appeal to people that will never vote for them, no matter what. So they're losing both votes. And I mean, let's go back a few days, because all this started with what happened in the House of Commons the other day when the Speaker of Parliament knowingly did something unconstitutional. And again, that was to do with the fear of the mob that was outside, the fear of the protesters that were outside. And then before that, we had Tom Freer, the Minister of Justice, who resigned because he felt it was threatened, and basically he felt scared I posted a video about that because I thought, well, if the Minister of Justice is too scared, if he feels threatened, then what chance is there for the ordinary citizens? And then after that, we had this situation where Lindsay Doyle wanted to change to go against the constitutional procedures because he was scared of what might happen to the MPs. Have you ever experienced anything like that in this country? where the political establishment are giving in to a violent mob because they're too scared. Because I'll tell you what, I'm friends with Lord Clooney, and I mean Lord Clooney, he was assassinated by the IRA. He was shot 5 times. His bodyguard was killed. He was in hospital for over 6 months. He actually read his own obituary while he was in hospital because everyone thought he was killed. The assassination was so bad, but he didn't sort of like come out of hospital and say, "Oh, I feel too scared now. I feel threatened. I'm not going to. I'm going to give up politics." And that he carried on. So we're talking about a different kettle of politicians nowadays. I mean, what has happened? Why are they so timid? Why are they so cowardice?
I was waiting for you to use the word, and it was the last word you just said: cowardice. We now have a House of Commons almost full of cowards. Everything you mentioned there is down to cowardice. So let's look at the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle. Coward. So he decided to change parliamentary procedure because he's scared of the repercussions if he doesn't. Well, I don't want any MPs to be assassinated and to be abused and to be killed. But in a democracy, that always has to be an outcome. If we're going to tackle terrorism, people will get killed. And what we do is when we appease terrorists, it emboldens them. They will do more and more and more because they've already pushed you back one step. So they know they can push you back some more steps. And that's exactly what Lindsay Hoyle did. He's shown the world we're a bunch of cowards. Now, you also talked about the minister who resigned, the Tory minister who resigned because of threats. Again, that's a horrendous position to be in. And he did the right thing. If he's too cowardly to carry on his job, to do it correctly, then he should resign. And that's what he's done. So somebody now may be elected who's braver, who will take the fight to the extremists. And then Rishi Sunak, a couple of days later outside 10 Downing Street, talking about radical Islam. And every time he mentions radical Islam, he has to say, and the far right, and the far right. There is no far right in the UK. There's probably 9 people in the whole of the UK who you could class as far right. But he has to say it because he's scared of being called a racist. You cannot tackle a problem and solve a problem until you identify that problem, highlight that problem, and then expose that problem for everyone to see. And then you can deal with that problem. He should have stood there on the steps of Downing Street and he should have said, radical Islam does not fit and will not be tolerated in the UK. These are the steps we're going to make to tackle radical Islam. Moderate Muslims are more than welcome to live here.
But what's happened, Nick? Because, like I said, I mean, we had the IRA years, where they were bombing politicians, they were assassinating politicians. They bombed the Tory conference in Brighton, the Grand Hotel. Many people were killed, disabled for the rest of their lives, and that. But they didn't come out after that saying, "Oh, we're too scared now. We're resigning." They carried on. They showed defiance, if anything.
A different generation of politicians.
Yeah, but
so our politicians at the moment,
from that generation to that generation, what has gone wrong from that courage, from that bravery, to this timidness and cowardice?
Easy to answer. It's called the EU. So we joined the EU in the 70s. And then once we joined the EU, we didn't need leaders anymore. We didn't need brave politicians anymore. We needed a load of middle managers. And that's all the House of Commons. That's what the House of Commons became, a house full of middle managers whose job it was to implement laws that a foreign power based in Brussels told them to do. So leaders stopped becoming politicians because we needed middle managers. Now, the 80s, we still had some leaders in the 80s because they joined and became politicians before we joined the EU. But since then, the ones who've joined since then are basically professional middle managers. Now we've left the EU. In the next 10 years, we will start getting a better quality of MP sitting in the House of Commons because they're not middle managers anymore now. They're politicians, they'll be leaders, they'll be statespeople. They can make decisions for this country. They can change this country. But the batch we've got at the moment, for the next 5-10 years, won't be able to do any of that. But slowly but surely, new leaders will come and new leaders will be elected. It'll just take time.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I didn't think I could blame the EU for that. But don't you think there's more to it? Because I mean, I see this in everywhere. People are sort of, you know, you see someone being wronged in the street or something, and people are just like walking away. They're not getting involved anymore, and it didn't used to be like that. You know, men were men. You know, uh, masculinity meant something. You know, the moral courage was a badge of pride. You know, it's now it's the other way around. You know, they talk about toxic masculinity, or you know, all this sort of thing. And I know you've got strong views about that. And I think you mentioned something about toxic masculinity, didn't you? You said like, well, actually, it's a good thing. You know, everyone's like,
Yeah.
you know, trying to sort of like. Make it as a negative thing, but isn't that what we need?
No such thing. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's toxic men, just like there's toxic women. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. Masculinity is amazing. Masculinity is the reason why we have what we've got today. Masculinity conquered the natural world. Masculinity conquered the elements. Masculinity explored new worlds. Masculinity created inventions and medicine and created the modern world. All that was done by masculinity. But then 100 years ago, we had the movement, the feminist movement, who then started poisoning a lot of this. So they started off by wanting equal rights. No one's got a problem with that. Don't forget, 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago, most men couldn't vote in this country. So women only did without the vote for 10 years longer than working class men. That's all it was, 10 years. It wasn't, you know, for thousands of years. It was a decade. But then the feminists then decided we had a patriarchy, men were evil, and they started infiltrating society. And that's when we started denigrating men. So men's positions in society was to be a protector and be a provider. But then women started saying to men, we don't need you protect us, we can protect ourselves. So over generations, men have stopped protecting women. And who's lost the most in that decision? Women. Because men now can watch women get battered and men won't step in. And the reason why they won't step in is they've been told, women don't need you. And then we have women now, you know, something like 20%, 25% of all women in the UK are on antidepressants. And you think, why? But it's because they can't cope with modern life, because they have to have a career, they have to have children, they've got to look after the home, they have to do everything because feminism tells them being a woman isn't good enough. You've got to be a man. You've got to compete with men because being a woman is second class. Men have never told women they're second class. Men are envious of women. Men look at women as if they're semi-divine. They create life. Life grows in them. They give birth. Women are absolutely amazing creatures that we protect. That men sacrifice their lives to protect.
Yeah.
When you look at a newspaper, men. No, there's a burning building. Who runs the building? The burning building. Men do. Who screams women and children first in emergencies? It's not women. It's not children. Men scream that because we know women are more valuable than us for the survival of the tribe and survival of the nation. Men put women on a pedestal, but feminists constantly tell women, you're just a woman, you should be a man. And a lot of our societal problems come out of that. That's why we have fatherless homes. That's why we have crime. That's why men don't protect women anymore. You know, and children, we don't protect children anymore now because men don't know what they should do. And that's why we have a high male suicide rate, because most men now, they're lost. What is their role in life? They don't know.
Yeah. Last time I met you, you were in fact working on your new book about feminism.
Yes.
How's that going?
Yeah, it's been published.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to tell me that. So
there you go.
When was it published? When was it published?
And I never should unplug my speaker. oh, you're back on. Cool. Yeah, so I published it end of last year. It's
Okay.
called.
So it was after I met you. You were still working on it when I met you.
Yeah. It's called Feminism, Myths, Lies, and Ungratefulness. It's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. So just go to Amazon if you're interested in buying it. And it basically explores the myth of feminism. We're told feminism is all about equality. Feminism has basically nothing to do with equality. Feminism is a trade union for feminists. That's all it does. It doesn't even improve the lives of women.
And it makes me laugh. These feminists, they were also very much against Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
And, you know, she was the first female prime minister. If anything, she should have been an icon for them, shouldn't she? To be able to be so powerful in a very much, especially back then, such a man's world sort of thing, where cabinet ministers feared her sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, even if you disagree with her politics in there, as a feminist, you should be looking at it as an icon of achievement for women.
I talk about that in the book. If feminists were really about female equality, they would have celebrated Margaret Thatcher. They didn't have to celebrate her policies. They should have celebrated the first female prime minister of the UK. And on the back of my book is a quote by Margaret Thatcher. Let me read it to you. She says, "I hate feminism. It's a poison." That's why they didn't like it.
So let me just go back on more local issues now, because obviously it's very important that you win this election. Unfortunately, I don't live in Manchester myself, so I can't vote for you. But I would have very much liked to have a candidate like you in London. Now, again, one of the things that I know you're very passionate about is the how to stop the crime in Manchester. Now, just in recent few days, there have been a few more stabbings in Manchester. Yep. And I've asked you this before, but I want my audience, my subscribers, to hear you as well. What makes you think you can make a difference about the rising crime rate in Manchester?
First thing is, people need to realise that the Mayor of Greater Manchester is also the Police Crime Commissioner. So he's basically the boss of the Chief Constable. He can fire the Chief Constable. So that's how he can control the police. So the mayor can't start directing police officers to do this, do that, but he can write strategies and plans for the police to implement. So that's what I'll be doing. So why do I think I can do it? Well, I've been working with the police for 20 years. I used to be based in police stations, a council manager. I've trained police officers. I've advised 3 different prime ministers on how to tackle crime across the UK. I've got a cabinet full of awards for all the crime reduction projects I created that were successful. So I understand policing. I've also spent 20 years working with young people, stopping them getting involved in crime. I understand how criminals think. I was brought up and raised on a council estate full of criminals. Some of my family are criminals. I understand how criminals think. We need to get away from middle-class, educated social workers going, "Oh, it's not their fault. Oh, if only the mum was this." I'm sick of all these excuses. We need to start looking at why criminals are criminals, and the big part of it is cultural. People are born into criminal families. People, we're not highlighting the gene. But it comes through families as well. Criminality comes through families. But we can't change any of that. What I'm going to be doing is changing Greater Manchester Police. And we're going to be changing them from a police service into a police force. I want police officers to hammer criminals every single day. I want police officers to wake up every morning smiling, thinking, "I'm going to be hammering a criminal today." And that's exactly what they will be doing. So how will I change the police? Day one, I'll be cancelling all the identity politics out of Greater Manchester Police. I'll be getting rid of the Black Officers Group, the Muslim Officers Group, the LGBT Officers Group, and every other group that's in there. There is no more groups. They will be disbanded. They will not be officially recognised anymore. I'm then going to be looking at recruitment. I'm going to be increasing fitness tests. I'm going to be looking at what we're looking for in officers. This will result in less female police officers. I don't necessarily want less female police officers, but that will automatically happen because to be a police officer, the physical tests will increase. I also predict there might even be less black and Muslim officers and brown officers in the police because I don't care. If you can't pass the test, you don't become an officer. I'm going to raise the bar. I want the best people to be police officers in Greater Manchester. And if that creates inequalities in diversity, not my problem, because I want the best officers. I've had officers in Greater Manchester Police contact me over the last couple of months, and several of them have said to me, if we could sack 15, 20% of all officers in Greater Manchester Police and didn't replace them, productivity in Greater Manchester would go up overnight in the police. Because it says we're sending good officers all the time to correct the mistakes of the poor officers. We just need to get rid of all the poor officers. So there's some of the things I'll be doing. I'll also be looking at promotion. We need to start promoting the officers we want to lead Greater Manchester in the future, and stop promoting officers who are woke, who buy into all that identity politics. So they're just some of the stuff. And if the chief constable doesn't buy into any of this, he'll be sacked, and they'll find a new chief constable who will implement the strategies I want implementing.
One of the other things that I think is wrong with, or what went wrong with the policing, is when they started closing down the police stations. What compelled them to do that? I don't know any other country where they close down the police stations. I mean, if you close down the police stations, that means a policeman who's on the line is in danger. It just takes longer for his colleagues to reach him. When they catch criminals, they've got less places to take them to lock them up. You know, last year we were on holiday. We went through 6 countries in Europe. We were driving through in there. Everywhere I felt safe. You know, the kids were like, you know, we were in Cyprus, for example. The kids were playing right till midnight in a park nearby, and that I couldn't let my kids out after 7 o'clock in the evening in London. And the police were proper police. You know, none of this like nonsense. You know. Who started this closing down the police stations? And would you be able? Is the same thing happening in Manchester? Is it just a London thing, or would you be able to open them again? Or
the police stations were closed down mainly due to austerity. So the police got big cuts, and they decided we either lose more officers, because they already lost loads of officers. We either lose more officers.
So this was on Cameron or Theresa May?
That was David Cameron.
Right.
When austerity kicked in 2011, that's when lots of the ones in Manchester were closed down. So they had tough decisions to make in 2011 about losing more officers or losing stations. Now, there is a case to be made for losing some police stations. We do a lot of our stuff online now. You can report crime online. Most people that don't want to go to a police station, they want to do it online on their phone. But there's still a place for some police stations, and there's a place of using technology and thinking outside the box. So we might not need old-fashioned police stations in our neighbourhoods, but we need community hubs. We need police hubs. That hub can be the local library. That hub can be the local housing office. It doesn't have to have jail cells. It can be somewhere where police officers base themselves with a computer in a log room so they can access the police database, where they can have meetings, where they can arrange a meeting with a member of the public. So we can bring modern examples of police stations back into communities. It just needs thinking about and doing. But the police lost big parts of their budget. But then we also have to think about, why don't we see police officers anymore? And we don't see police officers on the streets because the jobs they're doing is not what they were doing 30 years ago. So at the moment now, our police is a reactionary force. All they're doing is waiting for phone calls. There's been a crime here, we'll attend. There's been a crime there, we'll attend. Well, I don't want you to necessarily attend when there's been a crime. I want you there before there was a crime to catch them. So we've lost loads of detectives. We don't detect crime anymore or prevent crime. All our police forces do now is react after a crime. I want to get away from that.
And I know that the police officers themselves are not happy about the situation either. I mean, I've got a friend of mine in the Met Police, and he was telling me, I'm not sure if it was last month or the month before, they had 200 police officers leaving, where they recruited 7, because people just think, well, what's the point? You know, The public is sick of us. The public don't think we're doing a good job. We're putting our lives on at risk. And we could get better pay somewhere else. And the competent ones, the ones that can, the ones that pass the real test to get into the police force, they can find jobs at other places, and so they just can't keep them. And then you've got this influx of you've got that in Manchester as well. A lot of the police officers in London they're like the people that have recently come to Britain. Like, I mean, there was one that I had to deal with. She was a Bulgarian female police officer who could just about speak English. There was another one that came from I don't know, I think it was Malaysia or something that I was speaking to again.
And that's because the police now value diversity more than competency.
Yeah, diversity is overriding competence.
Yeah.
So they're bringing down the entrance requirements. The qualification, the level of qualification is just dropping.
Yeah.
They're being replaced by these people that are diverse, but not necessarily competent.
Exactly. And part of the argument of this will be you need a diverse police force, because how are black people or brown people or whoever, how are they going to feel safe when they don't see people, in the police who look like them? And the answer is, well, let's be honest, they came from countries where all of their police officers looked like them. And it wasn't a very good country, was it? And they didn't trust their police. So you don't have to look like the police. And the reason why people are leaving the police...
The British expats in Spain asking for, English policemen on the street.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
The Spanish policemen.
Yeah. It's this woke nonsense that the higher up in the police have bought into. And the reason why the decent police officers are leaving the police, who in the right mind would want to be a police officer now? The public despise the police. Even I dislike the police now to a certain extent.
Their incompetence is just it's irritating. You can't give them the sort of support that you used to give before, because they're just so incompetent. But I mean, as well-intentioned as you are, and with the best possible intentions that any candidate can have, and even the right policies, it's not going to be an overnight thing, is it? How long do you think it will take before you can improve the situation, or bring about a tangible improvement in the policing situation?
The people in Greater Manchester will notice a difference within the first 6 months. But that'll be the easy stuff. So you'll notice a difference within 6 months. The police officers will stop policing the internet. They won't be knocking on anyone's door about hurty words. They'll be arresting people. A lot of it will be filmed, and the press will be saying, look what Greater Manchester Police are doing. Look at them arresting these people using excessive force, and I'll be there as mayor going, well, I'm glad they were using force, because that person was resisting arrest. And I want to give everyday police officers on the front line the confidence to do their job, so they know they're not going to get thrown under the bus when they get videotaped, because the mayor will take full responsibility. I don't want to be like Sadiq Khan, who throws his armed police officers under the bus because it's convenient for him. I'm going to stick up for my officers unless they break the law, in which case we'll hammer them. But I won't be throwing people under the bus. So 6 months should be big improvements. And then over the 3-year period of mayor, hopefully in those 3 years, I would have done the foundational work that will lead the police to start changing institutionally over the next 5 to 10 years by promoting those officers up the chain of command. But any senior officers who I think isn't cutting the mustard, they'll be gone. We'll either give him early retirement, we'll either sack him for incompetence, or we'll make him leave. And if they want to take us to court, take us to court. You might win, but at least you're gone. And that will send ripples through Greater Manchester Police that there's a new sheriff in town, and these are the new rules of the new sheriff. It isn't the same as yesterday. I want a decent police force, and I'll support any officer who wants the same as me.
In terms of the budgeting for the police, would you have any control on that, or is it the government that allocates that, or does the mayor have an input into it? Or
so the government, it comes from the government and council tax. So we have no say over the government bit and the council tax bit. What the mayor can do is the mayor can add on to the council tax. So he can increase the bit that goes to the police and the fire service. Again, I won't be doing that. We pay far too much tax in this country. Giving money to failing institutions isn't the answer. Greater Manchester Police isn't failing because they have a lack of money. They're failing because of the senior management and the woke ideology. That's where they're failing. So I'm promising people at Greater Manchester I'll be reducing my bit of your council tax bill because you pay too much tax at the moment. And to get better services, so the police will be easy to fix because I'm in charge. But for the other services in Greater Manchester, like the councils, like the NHS, I've come up with a policy where I'll be naming and shaming senior politicians who are failing in those institutions. So we all know they're failing, but no one's got the guts to name the people. I'll be naming them. I'll be going, in this NHS department, Joe Bloggs has just wasted £500,000 on an IT system that doesn't work. In this council, it's Peter Smith who just spent 50 grand on rainbow badges. I'll be naming people so the public know who to hold accountable. Because at the moment, we just know it's the council. Council's incompetent. Yes, we all know that. I'm going deeper than that. I'm going to be hated within all the councils, within the NHS and all our tax-funded institutions. They'll all hate me because I'll be naming them when they fail and when they're incompetent and when they're wasteful. It's the only way we're going to get change. Throwing more money at them isn't the answer.
Just one more topic before we close it tonight, and that's the rising homelessness. Again, this is something that we see. I'm seeing in London. It's just increasing all the time, more and more. And I assume that it's the same in Manchester now. Your background, you have a special expertise in this. What is causing? What's the root cause of homelessness, and how would you tackle it if you were elected as a mayor?
Yeah, so if we talk about homelessness, what I'm talking about is rough sleeping. So I'm talking about people sleeping on the street.
On the street, yeah, that's what
homelessness covers lots and lots of things. So let's talk about rough sleeping, So we have two types of people sleeping on the streets in the UK. We have the people we imagine, so broken people who are drug addicts, who have got severe mental health issues, who have fallen through all the safety nets, and they end up on the streets, who beg for money for drugs, and they're trapped in a 3-4 hour drug cycle of begging money for drugs, begging money for drugs, begging money for drugs, and they're slowly killing themselves on the streets. That problem went up 15 years ago because of austerity, and then we started tackling it again, and it started coming down. We haven't eradicated it, and that's a national shame that we haven't eradicated that side of it. But a lot of the rough sleeping we're seeing at the moment is asylum seekers and illegal immigrants. So people come to this country, get asylum, and can stay here. And then what do we do then? So they end up sleeping on the streets. So I got nearly 2 decades working with rough sleepers in Greater Manchester. I've set up many projects, award-winning projects. And I was talking to Boris Johnson's team when he was Prime Minister about how we can tackle this nationwide. Then he got kicked out. So what do we do? So my idea in Greater Manchester is nobody will be sleeping on the streets within a year. I'm not saying I'll get everybody a flat. I'm not saying I'm going to improve their lives. I'm just saying nobody will be sleeping on the streets because there will be beds available every single night of the year. And if you're sleeping on the streets, you'll be moved on. You'll be arrested. We won't tolerate anybody sleeping on the street because there's places for you to go. If you can't get there, we'll pay for a taxi for you to get. If you've got a dog, they'll have kennels. If you want to take drugs, take drugs. We're just not having you on the streets. And that'll be the message across Greater Manchester. Now, the hostels that will open, some of them will be garden sheds inside empty warehouses, which will be independent living pods. And that'll be temporary accommodation to get people in there, sort them out, drugs workers, and help them move into accommodation flats and a better life. That's what we'll be doing with some of them. And then some of them will be just mass beds, camp beds. And a lot of them will be for the illegal immigrants. Because what What we need to be careful of in Greater Manchester, this is why Andy Burnham has failed to reduce rough sleeping in Greater Manchester, is because if you get to Greater Manchester and you get on his scheme, you end up with a one-bedroom flat. So what does that do?
Everyone comes in.
Everyone's come to Greater Manchester from all over the country.
Yeah.
We have something like 40 illegal immigrants
So
coming to Manchester every day wanting accommodation, because the rumour's gone out now. We'll accommodate you. So we're not going to end that problem. So I'm going to make sure no one sleeps on the streets, but the accommodation will not be great because we can't attract anybody else. And then what I'll be doing is I'll be taking the Home Office to court, because failed asylum seekers and people who are right to stay and illegal immigrants, they're not our problem in Greater Manchester. Why should the Manchester council taxpayer have to fork out for these people when we've got services we want improving? So I'll be taking the Home Office to court saying, each one of these people we help, you get the bill, because these are your problems. We'll sort them out, but we're sending you an invoice for 30, 40, 50 grand per person. That's what it costs to sort these people out. And we're not having you dumping the world's poor in Greater Manchester because we're good at solving rough sleeping. And we'll probably lose that case, but that case will show the country why we have these problems. It's the Home Office failings in the Home Office. I'll be naming the senior civil servants in the Home Office who are causing this problem. Again, I'm not saying I can solve every problem in Greater Manchester, but the least I can do is show the people why we have these problems and name the people who should be solving these problems. And that's the different way we need to start tackling some of these problems. It can't just be same as yesterday and just throw more money at it, because same as yesterday doesn't work, and throwing more money at it doesn't work.
So let that be my last question. So we've talked about a couple of things where you're confident and I'm confident that you can solve. Is there something that you think even you can't solve?
There's lots of things I can't solve, but if I become mayor, I won't be tackling those problems. I'm not going to tackle anything in Greater Manchester that has me relying on councils, that has me relying on any other institution or any other organisation, because none of those organisations, institutions will be on my side. They will be trying to block me every step of the way. And 3 years will go quickly. I can't afford wasting time fighting these institutions. So I'm going to do those three things I mentioned. Fix the police, because I'm in charge of the police. Easily done. Fix rough sleeping, because I can do that as mayor. I'll have a little bit of money, and that's about getting that done. And then I'll be naming and shaming the people who run our failing public services. And I don't need any help of any institution to do any of those three things. That's why I won't be tackling things that I know I can't tackle.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. As I said, I wish I was in Manchester, I could vote for you, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like-minded and think like we do. And let's hope they don't remain a silent majority. Let's hope they register and they take part and they vote for you. And hopefully I should be able to speak to you again as we get closer to the election date as well. But if you get time, if you have time to talk to me. But again, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me, and I'm keen to get this posted as soon as possible. So I'll say good night to you for now.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to follow me, find me on all the social media platforms, Nick Buckley MBE. I'm on everything. Follow me, share my posts. And if you've got family and friends in Greater Manchester, speak to them about me. It's the only way I've got a chance of winning. That's
right, yeah. And it's been done before. I mean, you're an independent candidate, but you know, you're going against the establishment there. But it's been done. It's been done before. And if people just make sure they don't stay home that day, and come out and vote for change. Let's show the establishment that there is another way, and we're going a different way from where you've been leading us. So once again, thanks a lot, Nick. Speak to you again hopefully soon. All the best.
No, that's great. Cheers.
Bye.